Bella Ramsey expresses interest in playing Spider-Man. If they were to join the Marvel Cinematic Universe, that would be me wanting to play Ripley in a reboot of Alien. Like, huh?
The entertainment news cycle was set ablaze not by a formal studio announcement, but by a seemingly spontaneous remark from actor Bella Ramsey during a sprawling Variety interview. When the conversation casually turned to the topic of superhero aspirations, Ramsey, with a blend of audacious jest and genuine ambition, quipped, "Or I could be Spider-Man," a line that instantly transcended its original context to become a standalone, incendiary cultural moment, ripe for endless dissection across social media platforms and industry gossip columns. However, from a seasoned industry perspective, the precise timing of this comment is arguably the most critical element to analyze, as it landed directly in the wake of significant career turbulence for Ramsey, following the intensely divisive audience and critical reception to the second season of HBO's flagship series, The Last of Us, a season that saw its Rotten Tomatoes audience score catastrophically plummet from the stellar 90s enjoyed by the first season down into the startlingly low 30s, a collapse that made Ramsey the unfortunate focal point of considerable fan backlash, relentless memes, and online critique concerning their suitability for a lead action role, which in turn frames this Spider-Man comment not merely as idle actorly speculation, but as a potential highly strategic pivot designed to aggressively reposition a burgeoning career away from controversy and towards the luminous, conversation-shifting potential of the Marvel Cinematic Universe.
Let's listen to what she has to say.
Or I could be Spider-Man.
Okay, make that pitch right now to Tom Holland. You're out, you're in.
Tom Holland did a great job, though. So I don't know. Maybe they do need to make a new one for me.
A well-trodden and often effective path for actors seeking to redefine their narrative in the public eye and forcefully redirect the toxic chatter surrounding their name. To the casual observer, an actor's expression of interest in an iconic role is commonplace and harmless, but within the sophisticated, leak-prone corridors of power in Hollywood, such comments are frequently anything but accidental, often functioning as meticulously placed trial balloons or calculated leaks designed by savvy PR teams and studio marketing departments, in collaboration with talent agents to gauge public sentiment and test the boundaries of fan acceptance without any official commitment or financial investment. This intricate process involves strategically floating a potentially controversial idea, in this case, a radical, non-traditional casting for the immensely sacred role of Spider-Man, through a trusted, high-profile media outlet like Variety, and then meticulously monitoring the digital fallout across every major social media platform, niched subreddit, and entertainment news site to measure the temperature of the core fan base and the general audience. If the backlash is overwhelmingly and violently negative, the studio can easily distance itself, chalking it up to an actor's playful, independent musing. But if the response contains a significant, unexpected wave of support, or even just vigorous, sustained debate, the idea is then considered to have enough organic traction to warrant genuine internal discussion and development, effectively allowing a behemoth like Marvel to conduct extensive real-time market research and generate immense global buzz for a hypothetical project at zero financial cost and with minimal reputational risk, turning the internet itself into a massive unpaid focus group.
Marvel right now is struggling just a little bit. Fantastic Four is a fantastic flop, and they have been releasing endless images of Spider-Man Brand New Day to distract you from that, but I think that they have the opportunity to really fix things over at Marvel. They just have to listen to Bella Ramsey.
The groundbreaking introduction and subsequent exploitation of the multiverse concept within the sprawling narrative of the MCU has fundamentally and permanently altered the calculus of creative risk for its storytellers and executives, providing a canonical, in-universe explanation for introducing the most radical and unexpected variants of beloved characters without destabilizing the core continuity or permanently alienating segments of the audience deeply attached to traditional mainstream portrayals. This brilliantly flexible narrative device showcased to enormous commercial and critical success in Spider-Man No Way Home by bringing together the three live-action Peter Parkers, Tobey Maguire, Andrew Garfield, and Tom Holland, effectively creates a permission structure for virtually unlimited experimentation. A Bella Ramsey Spider-Person would not need to be a permanent, earth-shattering replacement for the primary Peter Parker, but could instead exist as a fascinating variant from a distant, unexplored universe, perhaps appearing in a Disney Plus special presentation, an animated segment, or a brief but memorable cameo in a major ensemble film like the upcoming Avengers: Secret Wars. This ingenious approach allows Marvel to capture the headline-generating, discourse-driving power of such a controversial casting coup, while simultaneously insulating the sacred main timeline's narrative, offering a tantalizing, low-commitment glimpse of a wildly alternative interpretation without the long-term obligation, making the vast multiverse the perfect vehicle for a high-impact, low-consequence creative gamble designed solely to shock and engage a fatigued audience. A critical and telling oversight in the entire online frenzy surrounding Ramsey's comment, and a primary source of the intense fan frustration.
Quote, I could be Spider-Man. Yes, cosplay, go to Comic-Con.
Is the pervasive blind spot towards Marvel's own rich, decades-deep library of established and immensely popular female and non-binary characters who already operate authentically within the Spider-Man mythos and have their own dedicated fan bases. The most immediate and fan-approved solution has always existed in characters like Spider-Gwen, also known as Ghost Spider, from Earth-65, a beloved figure who has already achieved icon status through the Oscar-winning Spider-Verse animated films, or Cindy Moon, Silk, a character with her own compelling, tragic origin story, directly tied to the same radioactive spider that bit Peter Parker, waiting to be awakened years later. Introducing an actor of Ramsey's profile as an original, canonically accurate character like Gwen Stacy or Cindy Moon would not only be a respectful nod to the source material, but would also be met with significantly more enthusiasm from the dedicated fanbase, who largely reject the notion of a gender-swapped Peter Parker as a lazy, uninspired reinterpretation that disregards decades of established character history and development in favor of a hollow, headline-chasing gesture that fundamentally undermines the character's core identity and the very reasons he became a cultural touchstone. If you're invested in unraveling the truth behind Hollywood's biggest rumors, make sure to like and subscribe to stay plugged into the conversation. Your support ensures you never miss our deep dives into the stories everyone is talking about. Now, back to the breakdown. Any serious, informed discussion about the future of Spider-Man on screen must be predicated on a clear, unambiguous understanding of the complex and often contentious intellectual property sharing agreement between Sony Pictures and Marvel Studios, a labyrinthine legal framework that dictates the very possibility and feasibility of any such a radical casting decision.
People have things to say about this, myself included. I do think that Bella Ramsey might make a great Spooderman. You know, I think there's a possibility that that could be true.
Sony Pictures retains the exclusive film rights to Spider-Man and his vast associated character roster, a holdover from a desperate 1990s fire sale made when Marvel Comics was on the verge of bankruptcy. The current fragile deal allows Marvel Studios president Kevin Feige to creatively produce Spider-Man films set within the MCU, but Sony retains final approval on all major creative decisions, character usage, and distribution rights, and more importantly, Sony is concurrently building its own separate and struggling universe of Spider-Man characters without Marvel's involvement, the poorly received Sony's Spider-Man Universe, SSU, featuring films like Venom, Morbius, and the upcoming Kraven the Hunter. Therefore, a decision as momentous and potentially alienating as casting a new, high-profile variant of Spider-Man would necessitate a complex, high-stakes negotiation between the two competing corporate entities, making it far from a simple internal Marvel Studios decision and adding another formidable layer of legal and commercial improbability to the entire speculative scenario. The intense, visceral, emotional reaction from fans to any suggestion of altering Peter Parker's fundamental identity stems from his unique and irreplaceable position in the pantheon of global superheroes. Unlike billionaires, gods, or super soldiers, Peter Parker was conceived as the quintessential everyman, a brilliant but socially awkward, financially struggling teenager from Queens who learns the hard way that, with great power, there must also come great responsibility. A simple yet profound mantra that has resonated with personal truth across multiple generations. His specific, deeply human journey, the overwhelming guilt over Uncle Ben's death, the constant financial struggles, the Sisyphean task of balancing superheroics with a failing personal life, and his inherent, unwavering goodness in the face of endless adversity.
Okay, I'm sorry. I'm not trying to be too mean here, but this is the least intimidating bank robber I have ever seen in my entire life.
Is intrinsically and inextricably tied to his experiences growing up as a young man, making the character a deeply personal and cherished touchstone for millions of fans worldwide who grew up seeing their own adolescent struggles and anxieties reflected in his. To fundamentally change this core identity is not seen by this passionate fanbase as a bold expansion of the mythos, but as a profound rejection of the very qualities that made the character endure for over 60 years, which is why proposals for a variant that alters his sex or gender are often met not with mere disagreement, but with a fierce, protective instinct over what they perceive as a cherished cultural artifact that is being threatened for the sake of transient trends. The ferocity and volume of the negative response to Ramsey's Spider-Man pitch is inextricably and directly linked to the recent and still raw fan disappointment surrounding the second season of The Last of Us, for which Ramsey, as the narrative co-lead, bore a significant and disproportionate brunt of the criticism from a large segment of the viewer base. The season, adapting the notoriously divisive and bleak video game sequel, The Last of Us Part 2, was widely criticized across online forums for its perceived rushed pacing, controversial narrative choices regarding character fates, and a prioritization of shock value and thematic grimness over the coherent, character-driven storytelling that defined the first season, leading to a historic and often cited collapse in its audience score on aggregator sites. This context is absolutely crucial to understanding the current climate, because it means Ramsey is not approaching a potential Marvel role from a position of neutral or positive fan goodwill, but is instead carrying the heavy baggage of a recent high-profile project that a vocal plurality of viewers felt failed to live up to its masterpiece-level predecessor, making the audience inherently more skeptical, cynical, and less receptive to the idea of them headlining another beloved franchise, a deep-seated skepticism that would undoubtedly translate into tangible box office apprehension and a pre-release online environment dominated by toxic buzz.
You changed up your impression at all, or is it pretty much the same?
Well, the noise is the same. I've not got any more noises in my back pocket. The new infected are pretty terrifying. They're so smart, and they haven't really got a noise. That's the whole point of them. They're silent and terrifying.
Ooh, give us a little silent and terrifying.
Adding a powerful, respected, and entirely unexpected perspective to the broader debate, Academy Award-winning Dame Helen Mirren recently weighed in on a strikingly similar topic regarding the future of the James Bond franchise, stating unequivocally in an interview that James Bond has to be a guy, explaining that while she is a staunch and lifelong feminist, she believes some iconic characters are defined by certain immutable traits, and that changing those core elements fundamentally creates something else, a new character entirely that should stand on its own merits. Mirren's succinct and blunt comments, coming from an esteemed, liberal-leaning figure within the industry, known for her progressive stances, provided a moment of powerful validation for countless fans and cultural commentators who have long argued against the gender swapping of legacy characters as a form of superficial, uncreative representation that lacks authenticity. Her argument powerfully reinforces the idea that true, meaningful progress in storytelling lies not in co-opting and altering existing male heroes, but in championing, investing in, and properly marketing the multitude of original and canonical female heroes who already exist and desperately deserve their own spotlights and billion-dollar budgets, a perspective that directly challenges the potential, cynical reasoning behind even considering casting someone like Ramsey in a traditionally and definitively male role like Peter Parker. In the modern, hyper-accelerated media landscape, where online engagement metrics and social media trends often trump traditional critical acclaim and long-term brand health, there is a compelling, albeit cynical, argument to be made that for a studio like Marvel, which is currently facing an unprecedented wave of superhero fatigue, declining box office returns, and a widespread perception of creative decline, the sheer volume of conversation generated by a potential Bella Ramsey casting, regardless of its overwhelmingly negative tone, could be viewed internally as a net positive. This dangerous strategy operates on the precarious principle that intense, furious debate, even if it is largely negative, keeps the franchise relevant and dominant in the cultural conversation, drives immense volumes of clicks and video content, and potentially exposes the brand to demographics outside the traditional and seemingly disgruntled comic book fanbase. The calculated risk, often taken by desperate studios, is that once a project is actually released, the sheer quality of the filmmaking itself could overcome pre-release skepticism, or conversely, that the controversy will have sufficiently lowered expectations to make the final product seem better by comparison. A hazardous, any publicity is good publicity model that prioritizes short-term metrics and shock value over long-term brand loyalty and the fragile trust of a core audience. After meticulously dissecting all the available evidence, from the highly suspicious timing of the comment and the well-documented mechanics of Hollywood trial balloons to the formidable constraints of the Sony ownership deal and the palpable, intense weight of accumulated fan sentiment, the rational conclusion leans overwhelmingly towards this entire incident being a masterclass in generating media chatter, rather than the genuine precursor to an official casting announcement. The practical barriers are simply too numerous and too high. The intractable legal complexities with a competitor like Sony, the fierce generational protection of a legacy character's core identity, the obvious availability of more appropriate and commercially safer canonical alternatives, and the specific, recent baggage the actor currently carries from another major franchise. However, the episode is far from meaningless in the grand scheme of studio strategy. It successfully accomplished its likely primary goal of dominating the entertainment news cycle for a full week, forcefully reframing the conversation around Bella Ramsey's career trajectory and providing Marvel executives with a comprehensive, real-world dataset on exactly where a large segment of its audience draws the line on multiverse experimentation, which is invaluable. Cold-hearted intelligence that will undoubtedly inform their actual, far less controversial, and more financially secure future decisions for the Spider-Man franchise moving forward.